love you guys.
Huh?
Wow, there's a lot of freaking Spider-Men. We all know of the Spiderverse, right? Right? We all know of it. But did you realize how many times the Spiderverse has been done in adaptations? Like, damn, where has the time gone? I still remember when the original 90s event happened on TV. I was a little kid dunk. I love this thing, man. It was fire. But since then, we've gotten like a plethora of Spider-Verse adaptations over the years, all of which we are going to rank. Now, I usually do rankings based on how accurate the adaptation is to the source material. But the 90s Spider-Verse actually is the source material. It predates the comic version, actually. On top of that, not a single adaptation even attempted to do what the comic storyline did. A bunch of timeline hopping, universe jumping, vampires eating spiders across the multiverse. It just wasn't it. That's just not that good of a storyline if we're going to be honest with ourselves. It's actually kind of buns. So it's pretty crazy that the comics would do it 2 separate times. The third comic storyline's a little bit different, but even still, it doesn't have a good villain either. But we're not looking at the comics today. We're going to be looking at other media. We're looking at adaptations, okay? So today we're going to be looking at every single Spider-Verse adaptation there is, and we're going to be ranking them. These rankings are just going to be based off how good they are, right? Because we can't actually do it based on source material, since it is the source material or predates the comics. Some of these adaptations take a lot of liberties, whereas others will use very distinct comic book variants that we all know of. We all got the criteria on the table, right? Before we hop into this video though, how would you rank the adaptations, right? We got the 90s Spider-Man, the Shattered Dimension, Ultimate Spider-Man has 2 of them, No Way Home, 2 Spider-Verse films. How would you rank these adaptations in your own opinion? For my list, we're going to start at the bottom, and we're going to start right about here. The worst Spider-Verse adaptation of all time, in my opinion, is the second Ultimate Spider-Man storyline. In my opinion, it was just mid. It's not horrific, but it's definitely not good. The show itself is pretty hard to watch, in my opinion. It treats the viewers like they're idiots. It's very handholdy, and it over-explains every little detail that's happening on the show like a 60s comic. And don't run to the comments and say that this show was made for kids, that's why it's so handholdy. Every Spider-Man cartoon ever made is made for kids, so why is this the only one that literally will break the fourth wall in the middle of an episode to explain to people what's happening? On top of that, he also will reintroduce himself to the audience like halfway through the episode. Like, it'll literally be the halfway break. He'll come back and be like, hey guys, I'm Spider-Man. It's like, no shit, bro. We know you're Spider-Man. Stop it. The storyline itself has Peter and Miles hopping through dimensions to find the gem fragments from the previous Spider-Verse endeavors from this show. And if they don't find these gems and bring them back together, all the universes will collapse into each other. And in my opinion, this is actually kind of a cool storyline. It's a good change of pace. A lot of Spider-Verse stories are like, we're being attacked by the evil people. We gotta get out of here. But instead, the premise is like the multiverse is literally going to break unless you get each of these gems and assemble them back together again. Instead of having to fight against an adversary, it's more like a race against the clock, something new. I thought this idea was pretty slick and clever because, you know, it's something new. And then they just shoehorn a bad guy into this event anyways, and it just becomes not something new. The bad guy happens to be an evil Peter Parker, which I can make do with. It's not that bad. It's definitely better than the Inheritors. This evil Peter Parker, he's evil, he's a villain. His name is Wolf Spider. His goal is actually the same exact goal as the very first villain from the first Spider-Verse in this TV show, which is so lame, man. He's just trying to gather DNA from spiders across the multiverse to make himself stronger with it. Like, the exact same storyline. Makes for a less compelling and interesting story when it's just rehashed. I'm sorry, like, it's just kind of lame. I think the concept of Wolf Spider was pretty cool, and I also really liked seeing Joe Fix-It, Spider-Noir again, Spider-Gwen. That was cool. But reusing a storyline that's already been done while also ruining what could have been a very unique Spider-Verse storyline isn't going to get you too high on this rankings. I'm sorry. On top of everything that I've talked about that I didn't really like, the ending of the Spider-Verse event is probably what I don't like the most. They win with just Peter believing in the Spider-Verse, and that's how they win. Everyone in the Spider-Verse is trapped. They're all in like this like alternate psyche dimension. Peter lets himself get trapped so he can go in there and give them like a spider pep talk, and then they all just like use their hopefulness to beat the bad guy, Wolf Spider. It just didn't feel good. You know, he didn't go in there with a plan or anything, and his plan ended up just being like, friendship! And it wasn't even like a good friendship, like we're stronger together. These guys don't even know each other. So these characters, like we're getting a lot of different Spider-Man characters in this right now, in this moment. But we actually haven't even seen many of these guys across the entire arc. So like, who are they? Now I'd say it's like a 6.5 out of 10, this adaptation. It's passable, just barely, but it's not good. Next up, I would say the original Ultimate Spider-Man Spider-Verse storyline is where I would have on this list.
Okay, don't freak out. Huh?
The story itself is pretty solid, I would say. I really enjoy how it's not a shoehorned villain into this role, like the Spider-Verse. God, the Inheritors are so terrible, man. In this show, the very first Spider-Verse event, it's just the show's Green Goblin. Man finds out there's an alternate universe of Spider-Man, so Goblin creates a device that can dimension hop, uses Electro as a battery, and he begins to go to the multitude of dimensions in order to steal each universe's Spider-Man's blood. We meet a lot of Spider-Man variants throughout this. We see Spider-Man 2099, Spider-Ham, Miles Morales' Spider-Man, Spider-Girl. Goblin manages to get all of their DNA, and he uses it to give himself more powers. Like I said earlier, it's the exact same storyline as Wolf Spider, except this one happened first, so it gets way more of a pass, and it's way better in my opinion. Another highlight I have for this universe was like that Miles Morales was the Ultimate Spider-Man. Like, I think that's really cool. The show is obviously called Ultimate Spider-Man, so viewers just naturally believe they're watching the comic, right? You're watching what takes place in the comics. But that's actually not true at all. This is an original show. It's like a bastardization of the comics N616. It just does whatever the hell it wants, which is like fine at times and atrocious at most times, though. But when Peter goes to Miles' universe, they fight the Ultimate Green Goblin. Yeah, the Ultimate Green Goblin from the comics, like from the Ultimate Spider-Man video game from back in the day. This guy, yeah, him. And he was hulking out, bro. He was going in. He was beating up the main show's Green Goblin and Miles and Peter. He was going crazy. This was everything for me. Like, I loved seeing this freaking Green Goblin. Ultimate Green Goblin was so freaking cool, in my opinion. And then the Green Goblin who's from the show that stole their powers becomes the Spider Goblin, which is like akin to 2000's Doc Ock turning into Monster Rock. I thought it was pretty raw, honestly. This show also does a differing animation for every universe, or most universes it goes to, and that's like a staple in the Spider-Verse movies we eventually would get, so obviously this show is ahead of its time with that as well. Gotta give credit, the Spider-Man 2099 universe was pretty sick. But the ending is where it does lose lots of points, in my opinion. The entirety of the 4-episode arc is built up with the goblins versus the spiders, right? Spider-Goblin comes out and you got like 6 spider people to fight him. It's supposed to be this cool thing. But then somehow, like, Electro gets set free from that device he was trapped in, and then he kind of just takes over, and then he becomes the big bad in, like, the last 15 minutes of this entire arc. Now, this arc is over, like, an hour and a half almost, like, give or take a bit. So you're going to tell me I watched an hour and 15 minutes and it was supposed to be the Green Goblin, only for them at the last second to just be like, we'll just do Electro. Like, I thought that was terrible. Super cheap cop-out. On top of the fact that the show is also, like, not very good at all and hard to watch. This ending was not good. And that's why I would have this Spider-Verse ranked in second to last. I'd say it's like a 7 out of 10, though. Not horrible, not the worst, but man, they did fumble. Next up, in my opinion, would be No Way Home.
I love you guys. Thank you.
This may be shocking for a lot of people, but before I get into it, I just want to say I fucking love this movie. It's phenomenal. But I personally can't possibly say it's peak Spider-Verse content. Like, look, it's good. I love it. No Way Home brings in a plethora of iconic live-action characters into the mix. You get Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, the Lizard's here, freaking Jamie Foxx is back with Electro, Sandman was there. We also got Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Like, this movie brought in a lot of freaking dope stuff, especially when you couple with the fact that Tom Holland's Spider-Man works with them. We got all 3 Spider-Man. Conceptually, it's awesome. I got to see Electro go up against Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I got to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man fight Electro and Lizard, things I never thought I would see. Tom Holland having the showdown with this Green Goblin. Are you serious? This is peak. And then Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man saving Zendaya's MJ in the fashion where he couldn't save Gwen. These moments are powerful and they mean something to me, man. They're fire. But they also aren't all from this movie. Like, you can watch any of the Spider-Verse projects and just watch the Spider-Verse project and you'll know what's going on. There's no extra material. There's no outside homework. You know what I'm saying? Sure, if you've read the comics, you get more out of it. Yeah, Spectacular Spider-Man was talking to the viewers in freaking Beyond the Spider-Verse for like a little bit. But you don't actually need to see this stuff to understand this stuff. You just don't. It's not that important. If you had no idea who Spider-Gwen was before you saw Across the Spider-Verse, you do now. It's that simple. If you had no idea who Spider-Man was, same thing. Same thing for Spider-Noir. Same thing for every single character in any of these movies. Same thing for any of these characters in literally any of these shows. Even the Ultimate Spider-Man show did this well. It didn't really like make you have to know other stuff for you to understand the story. No Way Home is not like that, though. No Way Home requires you to watch literally 5 different movies from 2 separate universes in order to understand this film. And that doesn't even couple with the fact that you also would have to watch Tom's first 2 movies to understand No Way Home. I don't even want to bring that up because I think that's fair, right? If you're going to watch a trilogy, we're not just going to say, you won't understand the 3rd movie without seeing the 1st and 2nd, because you could say that same thing for the TV shows, right? You won't understand the 4th part if you don't see part 1, part 2, and part 3. Yeah, I get it. Makes sense. But No Way Home is more of an extension beyond that, right? If it was just a trilogy you had to see, we would not be making an argument about this. But instead, you'd have to see a trilogy that has no relation to this film franchise except for this one film, as well as a duology with Andrew Garfield that again has no relation to this film franchise except for this one film. You also, Venom's not really that important. You don't have to see Venom. He just has a cameo. But like, you don't understand major moments of this movie unless you see these other movies. And in my opinion, I can't rank it any higher on this list because of that factor. Like, it's just not fair to me. And I don't think it's so, like, not okay. I think it's obviously an amazing Spider-Verse project, but I just don't think it's fair to ask fans to do that. I grew up with the Spider-Man movies. I saw them all in movie theaters organically. I'm old. I'm sorry. It's like that. But not everybody got to do that. Not everybody got to see all the Spider-Man movies. You could honestly probably say a lot of Spider-Man fans went in to see No Way Home, specifically just that movie. Spider-Man fans are kids. Maybe a kid just grew up and at that point he was old enough to see the movie. Now he's seeing No Way Home. And there's just a plethora of these random villains. He has no idea where they're coming from. So for me, this is the highest I could put No Way Home. Like, obviously, like I said, I loved this film. But like, this is the highest I could put it. Especially when you look at like the consistency issues as well, right? Like, why is Sandman even here? Spider-Man, all the villains in this movie died. And then they get brought here right before they die, right? Besides Lizard and Sandman. Neither of them died. So I don't really understand why either of them are here, personally. Then you can go even further. Green Goblin is a tad bit different. I don't know why. And then Electro randomly is no longer like the ultimate Electro with the blue colors. He's more like 616 Electro, regular dude who can shoot regular lightning colors. They don't really explain that either. And even though I personally like that change and make Jamie Foxx a way more compelling character, in story it needs to have reasoning, right? You can't just say like, and we're gonna change this now, go for it. Like, I don't know. That's not for me. I'll give No Way Home an 8 out of 10 on my Spider-Verse scale. I really love it. I really do, because I've seen all the films, but I just don't think it's fair to say when like you have to see all the films to see this stuff. To get this stuff. Next up, we have, in my opinion, Shattered Dimensions.
Oh, well, this is a little too easy. Why did I say that?
Out of my way!
This game is freaking godlike. From a Spider-Verse standpoint, it's utterly peak. You play as 4 different Spider-Man characters going through their timelines and fighting with their unique abilities to get a stone back to save the multiverse. You play as like 616 Peter Parker, 1610 Peter Parker, Spider-Man Noir, and Spider-Man 2099. All of which not only have their own unique moves and abilities, but completely different universes they showcase. You have Spider-Man 2099 in a futuristic Nueva York, old-time black and white for Noir. Spider-Man from 616 literally gets to fight Juggernaut, like his iconic comic book story. The Ultimate Spider-Man is fighting Carnage and Deadpool. That was utterly peak. Deadpool, however, is nothing like Ultimate Deadpool. He's way more like 616 Deadpool, but Ultimate Deadpool kind of sucked, so I was cool with that too. And then probably the coolest fact about this game is that every single voice actor for Spider-Man actually voiced Spider-Man in a cartoon. Neil Patrick Harris in this game is the Amazing Spider-Man, and he also voiced Spider-Man in TNAS. Josh Keaton in this game is the Ultimate Spider-Man, who voices Spider-Man in Spectacular Spider-Man. Christopher Daniel Barnes is Spider-Man Noir, who was the VA for 90s Spider-Man. And then Dan Gilvezan is Spider-Man 2099, and he was an 80s Spider-Man voice actor. Like, that's some real-life Spider-Man shit right there. You got a Spider-Verse of people voice acting these characters. That's sick. I have to get to the negatives, though. Ultimate Spider-Man is wearing the symbiote suit. That just doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, Deadpool being not Ultimate Deadpool doesn't make sense, but like, I'm telling you, everybody like, across the board hated Ultimate Deadpool. Spider-Man actually only wears a symbiote costume for one comic book. One. That's it. So I get why they added it, because it was the only other Spider-Man that people were so familiar with. But if the game came out just a little bit later, it would have really benefited from Miles Morales' inception, because like, he's just such a different Spider-Man. He's got invisibility. He's got like his Venom Blast. He's got a saber now. If that game came out now, are you serious? That game would be peak if it came out now. Mysterio is also the big bad of this game. I don't know. It just feels weird. Like, why is he a Spider-Verse big bad? I feel like Goblin or Doc Ock are great choices, and I wouldn't even mind an evil Peter Parker. I think he's a better choice. I just think Mysterio is kind of like a middling villain. I'm also not going to talk about Edge of Time. That's more of like just a 2 Spider-Man operation. I got plenty of 2 Spider-Man operation. If we're calling a 2 Spider-Man operation a Spider-Verse event, Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation 5 is apparently a Spider-Verse event then, under that notion. So, I'm just... just not gonna we're not gonna talk about that. We're gonna give Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions 8.5 out of 10. As we get closer to the end of this video, we have reached what probably is some of the most peak Spider-Man content ever made. In third place, I have to put the 90s Spiderverse event.
Am I going mad? This is the one that's supposed to be our leader?
This event is literally what changed the game. Prior to this event, there wasn't a single Spider-Verse event ever. Never, ever, ever. Not in the many games, the movies, or the comics. It never was done. This TV show is the very first Spider-Verse event. The Spider-Verse comics wouldn't even come out for another 20 years. This man, John Semper, the showrunner, he was so far ahead of his time, it's not even comparable. At the time of him making this, there weren't really other Universal Spider-Man. Like, I think Spider-Man 2099 was around for like a year or two in terms of comics. But like, come on, that's not a long time at all. Let's not joke around, all right? We're not going to hold that against him for not adding Spider-Man 2099. Because what he did do, I thought was a pretty cool idea. He did add Ben Reilly as an alternate universe Spider-Man, which I thought was really cool. Sure, he's not the most accurate because, you know, him and Peter Parker are usually from the same universe, but that is true in this show. In this show, Ben Reilly is the Spider-Man of his universe. The Peter Parker of this universe went off the deep end and is a bad guy. Ben Reilly is the Scarlet Spider. He is a good guy. He is awesome. He even has impact webbing. Like, I really like the fact that they decided to give Ben Reilly so much respect in this show. This Spider-Verse event also gives us the first look at Gwen in this entire show. She's from a different universe, the super rich billionaire Spider-Man's universe, but it's still Gwen. Like, it's still a Gwen. We never actually see Gwen prior to this moment, so that's also cool. What we got to talk about, in my opinion, probably the best part about it is the big bad. The big bad is Spider Carnage, the Peter Parker from Ben Reilly's universe. His goal is to wipe out all of entirety of everything, not just kill all the spider people and all the Spider-Verse, and I think that's hella unique. When you read or watch or think about Spider-Verse content, it's usually like the spiders are being attacked and they're part of the direct conflict, right? Whether Green Goblin is hunting them down, Inheritors are hunting them down, and evil Peter Parker's hunting them down, the targets are usually the spiders. However, Spider Carnage didn't have a vendetta for just Spider-Man. He wanted everything gone to destroy all of reality. This makes Spider-Man's cause seem much more noble, in my opinion. You're not stopping this man because he's hurting you. You're stopping this man because he's going to destroy everyone. He's going to hurt everyone. It's more of like a Spider-Man sacrifices himself. He doesn't only step up when he's the target kind of vibe. And I like that. And how they solve the conflict, I also think is phenomenal as well. They bring in an alternate universe Uncle Ben to talk to Spider Carnage. And, they don't solve it with fisticuffs or believing in people they've never met before. Spider-Man knows that this is still Peter deep down, and nothing meant more to Peter Parker when he was a kid than Uncle Ben. It's actually very tactful. It's not like the other show, which is just like, I believed in y'all. This is like, no, I know this is going to work because you are me. This Spider-Verse content from today's perspective is an easy 9 out of 10, and back then I would give it an easy 10 out of 10. The only two adaptations above it both came out at a time where like, you could just do so much more with Spider-Man, Spider-Verse stuff, and so much more content to pull from. Shout outs to Christopher Daniel Barnes, who is like the only voice actor to be a lead in multiple Spider-Verse projects. I know others have shown up in multiple projects, but like, dude, this guy headlines the 90s one, and he headlines freaking Shattered Dimensions. He's one of the 4, and he's the one in the 90s one. Like, come on. That's fine. 90s Spider-Man is just so otherworldly good. But there's 2 more we haven't talked about, and I think we all know what they are. In my opinion, the top 2 Spider-Verse adaptations are Across the Spider-Verse and Beyond the Spider-Verse. Oh my god, I don't even think it's a debate. These movies are just so good. Like if you want to argue about any of the ones before this, go to town. Have at it. But these projects are so clearly the best. Differing animations across the universes, the plethora of characters used, stellar voice acting performances, good villains. These 2 films embody what I think a Spider-Verse project should be. I can't believe they even exist. Like, they're just so beautiful, so well done. Oh my god. As a movie, I would probably say Across the Spider-Verse is a more complete film. You know, it wraps itself up nice and neatly by the end of its own film. But as a Spider-Verse project, I would say Beyond the Spider-Verse has more elements of what I'm looking for and want to see in a Spider-Verse project. They did the differing animations way better, a lot more converging storylines that all led to each other up at once, and even more spiders. You can't go wrong with either of these 2. If you were to choose either of these as your favorite or second favorite and swap them, flip them, whatever you want to do, I ain't gonna hate on you because in my opinion, these are the 2 best projects and 2 of the best Spider-Man adaptations we've ever freaking got. But what do you think? If you didn't write it down below before, now's the chance to do so. Let me know what you think is the best Spider-Man adaptation ever. And what do you think is the worst one too? Give me the details, homie. I'm gonna be reading the comments, so I'm gonna know who says what. This video was requested by my Patreon sub, my homie right here. If you want your own video done by me on an idea of your own, sub to the Patreon. I'll put it in the video description. You can go down below and see it there. Also, my Discord is down there too if you want to check it out and chat with your boy. That's about it for me in this video though. Dunk out. Peace.